Hi everyone, my name is Katy, and thank you for joining me for another reading journal video. Today we'll be doing my monthly update in my reading journal for the month of April, so let's get started. So as always, we are flipping to the first spread in my journal, which is my yearly bookshelves, and I'm filling in the color codes for the different books that I read this month. This month I read 5 books, which is a little bit low for me, but I had a very busy month with travel and work and everything, so I'm still very happy that I was able to read 5 books, and overall I did enjoy them all, which is also a total plus. And then moving on, I'm going to do my Aries Zodiac favorite, and this season, it was The Serpent and the Wings of Night, which absolutely blew me away. It's a new total favorite for me. And then I'm filling in a few books that I kicked off of my physical TBR and a few different bingo squares that I was able to complete this month. And then I'm filling out my monthly stats for April. So like I said, I read 5 books this month, and 4 of those were physical, 1 audio, and they were all owned physical books. And then flipping ahead to my April cover page, I'm just filling out my books read, my pages read, my average star rating, and my favorite book of the month. And April was the magical readathon, which I did a whole video setup for, which I'll have linked on the screen here and down below. And I am filling out the final page of that spread, which was tied to a little mini side quest. And I didn't complete the side quest. I'm going to do that later this year, but I'm just setting up the spread for that with the different bookshelves and prompts for that side quest, as well as the map that G created to go with the world where this whole magical readathon takes place. And I completed all of my readings for the magical readathon semester and half of the readings for the apothecary keeper license. In addition to that side quest that I mentioned earlier, I'll be completing the second half of the Apothecary Keeper readings before August. And then I realized that I had forgotten to color in the shelf on my cover page, so I'm just flipping back to do that. And then we are headed over to the book reviews. So the first book that I read this month was The Serpent and the Wings of Night, and it is a completely new favorite. I absolutely loved it. I loved everything about it, and I will talk more about it because I did a whole spread for this one. And then I read Powerless, which is a debut and the first in a trilogy. It is definitely heavily inspired by the Hunger Games, and the author has outright said that. And I don't think that it was too similar to the Hunger Games. I know some people had that opinion, but I think there was enough that made it different. However, it just did not totally grab me. I did like that it had dual POVs. I really liked that. And I will be continuing the series, but this one was overall a 3-star for me. And then I read A Fate Inked in Blood, which I was so excited for. This is by Danielle L. Jensen, who wrote The Bridge Kingdom, which I haven't actually read, but I've heard great things about. And I was super excited to read a Vikings romantasy. Yes, sign me up. And I ended up absolutely loving it. And again, I did a whole spread for this one, so I will talk more about it later. And then I read The Hurricane Wars by Thea Guanzon, which I was so excited for because my edition of this book is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, physical books that I own. It is absolutely beautiful. I have the Fairy Loot edition. And I did end up liking it. It is reworked fan fiction. It is Reylo, so from Star Wars fan fiction. And again, I did a spread for this, so I'll talk more about it in just a minute. And same goes for One Dark Window, which I also really enjoyed, and again, did a spread for. So lots of good books this month, even though there were only 5. And I'm overall super happy with my reading this month. And then I have this extra little space for a book review that I didn't end up filling in, so I turned it into a quote block. And I'm just using some extra stickers from Marigona Sully Art to fit my cover page, and this washi tape is from Notebook Therapy. It is so cute. I absolutely love the sakura flowers and the bows. And the quote that I chose is one of my favorites from The Serpent and the Wings of Night, and it is, "And the difference between nothing mattering and one thing mattering is a big one." And I just loved that quote. I related to it a lot. It reminds me of the good things in my life and, the darkest moments of my life and the lights that pulled me out of those dark moments. And overall, it's one of my favorite quotes from the whole book. So I was happy to add it here, and I also added it to the book spread that I do in a couple pages. And then moving on, I knew that I wanted to do quite a few spreads this month, but some of them I didn't want to do a whole 2-page spread for. So what I ended up doing was making these single-page spreads, and I think that they turned out really nicely. I've never done a single-page spread where both pages are different books. Usually I just have book reviews on one side and then the single page on the other side. So this was something new for me, and to make the spreads themselves stand out, I outlined where I was going to actually be decorating and writing. So instead of going flush to the edges, this kind of makes each spread feel a little bit more distinct and special. So the first book that I'm doing a single spread for is The Hurricane Wars by Thea Guanzon, and I'm using a mishmash of washi tapes in those beautiful purple and yellow colors. And these are from Simply Gilded and Michael's Craft Store. I am so in love with this beautiful purple cloudy sky one. It's so beautiful, it's so my aesthetic, and I was excited to get to use my yellow washi tape as well, because that is not a color that I decorate with very often or that fits my book aesthetics very often, so it was fun to be able to mix and match a few different tapes here. And then of course I'm adding in some beautiful Mushy Works stickers as well as some Notebook Therapy little washi stickers. This lady with the purple dress fit the vibe completely for the book and the book cover and everything, so I knew that I wanted to use that one. Now, The Hurricane Wars for me was a 3.5. I thought it was really freaking cool how the author turned Star Wars, this world that most of us know so well, into a South Asian inspired sci fantasy world. The cool technology and sci-fi-ness of Star Wars is still there, mixed with this fantasy world and fantasy writing style, which made it feel kind of unique, and the magic system felt unique. However, since I've watched Star Wars and know about Reylo, those are the things that, didn't feel as unique, but when you are reading reworked fanfiction, I almost expect those things, the world building not being as strong, the lore, all of the info dumping, I almost expect it to not be as strong, and this was that way as well. That being said, the romance, because it is reworked Reylo fanfiction, yeah, it was great. It had all of the Reylo vibes, the angst, It was cool seeing all these women in power. That was another interesting part of her world, and I was trying to make the connections to different Star Wars characters while I was reading it as well. And the quote that I chose for this page was, "Someone finally understood. Someone could give voice to all the things that he could never put to words." I really like that quote. Again, their romance was one of my favorite parts of the whole book, alongside this cool sci-fi fantasy crossover. And I will be continuing the series. It was fun, and I think that, again, the author is really freaking cool, so I will continue to support her. So the second book that I did a solo page review for was One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. And again, this was a debut novel, and this was really good. I was recommended this one by my mom, of all people. She reads a lot of fantasy, and she really enjoyed this one, and I enjoyed it as well. I gave it 4 stars, and what I really liked about it was the dark and gothic and misty vibe of the world building and story setting, and everything about the storytelling itself just felt very kind of spooky. So I had a lot of fun with it, and I also really enjoyed the characters and the magic system. Even though it was a little bit hard to understand at first, the magic system involves this deck of cards and this mist that is causing people infections and curses, and there's a lot going on, honestly, now that I'm thinking about it. But I really liked it. The romance was great, and I did really enjoy that. Now for the spread itself, I absolutely love how it turned out. It is very dark and moody, and I'm using one of my favorite washi tapes of all time with this really cute moon phases and flowers and pretty dark maroony kind of color washi tape from Notebook Therapy. And then I'm pairing that with this sticker of what they call a winter princess, I believe, in this gorgeous red dress from Coralie Renards, and I think it really fits the vibe of the whole book. And of course, I had to add in a window sticker, so I'm using this one from Maragona Sully Arts with the Dark Academia theme. And the quote that I chose for this spread was, "Except in this fairy tale, the maiden has blood on her hands." And yeah, I think it would be a great book to read around October or September, November kind of time in the fall, because it really felt like you're in this kind of creepy place with mist and just bad things around you. And I love books like that, so I very much enjoyed that feeling while I was reading. Overall, I really liked how both of these solo page spreads turned out. I think they look really nice, and I like how much space is between them, and I'm happy that I did the little border around each of them, and I'm just really happy with how they both turned out. So the next spread that I'm doing is a 2-page spread for a Fate Inked in Blood. And again, this one is a Viking romantasy. And I don't think I've really read any Viking romantasy. I've read Viking fantasy before. So I was excited for this, and I ended up really enjoying it. I am using stickers from Mushy Works, and then I'm using a few different washi tapes that look like the night sky that I got from Etsy and I believe Michael's. And I ended up really enjoying this one. It was a 4.5 stars for me, which is very exciting, and I just had so much fun reading it. First of all, our main character's name is Freya, and then our love interest's name is Bjorn, which is very fitting for a Viking-inspired fantasy. And this was super cool and different in that we have a lot of gods around and they bless certain humans and give them their magical powers. So we start out with our main character being married to a kind of crappy individual who has been blessed by the god of like the sea. So he has the magic to control fish, and therefore he is the reason basically why their community is able to eat. So he's a pretty powerful guy in that way. And she is in an unhappy marriage to this man for the betterment of her family. She really cares a lot about her family and feels very responsible for their well-being. And I would say that is one of her biggest flaws, is that she feels very responsible for everything and she takes a lot of burden on and feels like anything that goes wrong is her fault and that she's responsible for all these things. And I hope that she continues to grow throughout the series and realizes that that is not the case, because even by the end of the book, she still kind of feels that way. These are light spoilers. The things that I'm going to be talking about happen within like literally the first couple of chapters. But if you don't want to know anything, skip to this timestamp that I'll put on the screen to avoid any amount of spoilers. But like I said, these things happen within the first couple of chapters. So yeah. Okay. In the first chapter, or the first couple of chapters, we learn that she herself, our main character, is also blessed by a god, and she is blessed to be the shield maiden who has a ability to be a shield, basically. She can wield a shield and be very strong that way. And Bjorn, the love interest, has a big axe, a fiery axe that he's able to wield, basically. Literally, like the first couple of chapters involve her taking his axe and killing her husband. And it was a very shocking way, because you start the book knowing it's a romantasy and she's married to this guy. So obviously she has to get rid of him somehow. And that is how it ends up happening. But because she is the shield maiden, she is taken by the king, who is Bjorn's father, and she is expected to fulfill this prophecy that says that she will bring together the nations. And the way that they have interpreted it is that this man will be king and she will help him become king of these different nations. Again, you know it's a romantasy, and you know obviously that Bjorn is going to be the hero, but he is her now husband's son, which could be very weird. But I think it ends up being done well, and it's just fun. And I just had these kind of meta moments while I'm reading, like, how the heck is she going to make this work? And by the end, a bunch of stuff happens. We get to see the gods, and there's more, and it's pretty violent and bloody, and all this stuff happens. And at the end, there's this reveal that I kind of saw coming, but it's still a fun reveal, and I'm excited for the next book. I really had a lot of fun reading this and kind of couldn't put it down. So it was a great 4-star read for me, and I also really enjoyed how this spread turned out with my different maidens and also the stars of the sky and everything. I used 2 different quotes in this spread, the first being, "Fate cares little for your opinion on how things should go," and fate is a huge theme throughout the whole book. And the other one is something that Bjorn says to Freya. He says, "Not all scars we earn are skin deep, Freya born in fire. There is no less honor in them." Again, I hope to see her character arc continue to grow in the next book, and I am looking forward to that whenever it comes out. So the final book that I did a spread for this month was my favorite book of the month, and that was The Serpent and the Wings of Night. And I used these adorable purpley washi tapes from Notebook Therapy, and I used some of these in the intro pages of my journal here, so I was excited to use them again on this spread. They are some of my favorites. Purple is my favorite color, specifically like lavender purples, so I always am excited to use these shades in my journal. And I'm pairing those with this snake washi tape, as well as these Vampire Girl stickers from Maragona Sully Art, because this is a vampire book. I absolutely loved everything about this. Oh my god. So The Serpent and the Wings of Night starts out with our main character, Oriah, who is a human girl. She was taken by this cool vampire dad guy who becomes her father figure. She was taken when she was still very, very young, and then was raised in his castle because he also happens to be basically like the king of his group of vampires. I think that the two of them have a kind of Mother Gothel Rapunzel vibe, and I kind of got that since the first page where I met him. So that was an interesting aspect to the whole story. But she has decided to enter a set of trials, and her father is encouraging her to do this. He has trained her. When I say her father, I mean the vampire guy who took her. And she will be the only human to enter the trials, which is a big deal because the rest of the people will be winged vampires. A lot of these vampires have their own dramas going on because there are these 3 different families of vampires who are all kind of fighting for the throne. But if she wins this set of trials, she will be granted 1 wish, and her father have ideas of what to use this wish for. And we get to go through the trials. And I really love trials in any book. I always have. So that is a plot device that I really enjoyed in this book. They also, while undergoing the trials, are staying at this large castle, and she needs to make allies. And she finds an unlikely ally in Rain, who is our male love interest, and he is from a different family of vampires, so his wings look different. And I call him a not like the other vampires vampire because everything about him is just different. You know, he has different opinions. He's kind of going against society in the different things that he says and what he believes and what he says to Oriah. He agrees to be allies with Oriah and ends up helping her train and helping her through some of the trials because, again, she's human. Even though she's a good fighter and she's been trained by a vampire, at the end of the day, she is still human. So she needs allies, and he ends up being that for her. And you learn all kinds of crazy stuff. There's a lot of traumatic themes that get touched on, which I really enjoyed and thought were done well, but just a warning that there are some traumatic things that are touched on that you should read trigger warnings for. But overall, I thought it was done really respectfully. And again, I just really loved these characters and I loved the story, and I'm super excited to continue the series. And yeah, if you like a fantasy romance with vampires and fighting and kind of dark subject matter, try this one out. I hope that you won't be disappointed. So moving on to my May setup, I was super excited to use some of my new Maragona Sully art stationery that I got last month. I loved all of the pinks and purples and springy kind of vibes in the whole collection. So I'm using this purpley, flowery washi tape on both sides, and I had to cut this one in half so it wouldn't be so wide. And I'm pairing that with this adorable tea set washi tape, and I just think it's so cute. And of course, I'm drawing out my bookshelf and my stats area for the month, as well as my May books title. And usually I draw this out with pencil first, but I didn't do that here, so I'm pretty proud of myself for how it turned out, just freehanding it. Then I'm adding in my stickers on the left side. I'm using this adorable Tea Witch from the Tea Witch set that she came out with, as well as some of the accent stickers like the kitty with the tea and the owl on the teapot, and of course adding in one of the book stickers as well. I really love how all of the pastel greens and pinks and purples look together. I think it looks so nice. And I'm just finishing up with my markers. I'm putting in a bunch of sparkles and dots on the cover page, as well as coloring in the bookshelf on the right page. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. This was a very fun month doing 4 different book spreads and trying out the single page spreads. And overall, it was a great reading month and I had a lot of fun journaling for it. Overall, I really enjoy how all of my April pages turned out. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this one, please leave a like and a comment down below. And if you'd like to see more from me, please hit subscribe. I continue to post these monthly update videos, even if I get them out a little bit late. And I appreciate all the support on all of my recent videos. I hope that you and yours are staying safe, happy, and healthy, and I will see you again next time. Thanks again. Bye-bye.